All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Presence podcast. We have a special guest today, Miss Kiwanee Crummey. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about this notion of Black girl magic. And she's bringing a little bit of a different perspective, which I can't wait to dive into. But let me tell you a little bit about Kiwanee. Kiwanee is a chief designer and strategist for Society Bloom, which is a design company that prioritizes the branding needs of Black women, women-owned businesses that serve our communities. So she's a muse for all things Black women. Okay. She finds her greatest form of activism in boldly embracing, exemplifying, serving, supporting, advocating for, and celebrating us. So she also serves as a full-time program manager for a local nonprofit where she gets to extend her passion to uplift other underrepresented groups. She's also a mom of 3 amazing children, and they continue to inspire her. And in her spare time, she enjoys reading and writing on the topic most near and dear to her heart, Black women. Let's go.
Yes.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Melanie. I'm so excited.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So first I want to get into this whole topic, right, of Black girl magic, because it is a thing that we have basically taken under our wing. Like, we embrace it, a lot of us. And I know you reached out to me because there was another episode I did about, is Black girl magic a myth? And you had some very specific opinions around the notion, the idea of Black girl magic. And so first I want to start with, let's define what you consider to be Black girl magic. What does that mean, that phrase exactly?
Awesome. Wonderful. So I believe, for me, that Black girl magic is our ability to exist in spaces where we are essentially, the first word that comes to mind is robbed, but I won't say robbed because I won't say it's forcefully taken, but where our autonomy, our identity is kind of forced to be dormant, as women and as girls. And so I believe that when we start talking about Black girl magic and celebrating the accomplishments of Black girls and Black women, it's because we are defying that dormancy of our autonomy and our identity. And we are achieving things that, most people can only dream of, or even on a smaller scale, things that we did not believe that we were capable of doing. So that, to me, is what Black girl magic is: being able to overcome or defy the odds stacked against us in terms of our autonomy and our identity, our voice.
All right. I love that. I think that's a great definition, because I think we tend to not look at it that way, right? The fact that we're doing these things, we're going above and beyond because we were always kind of pushed down. Sometimes I think we just think we're just awesome, period. When there's a lot more to it, right? There's a lot deeper. It runs a lot more deep than that. And so I love the way you explained that. And so thinking of Black girl magic, right? When we think of it as little Black girls, little children, tell me what your thoughts are around raising little Black girls to be magical, quote unquote, and then, talk us through a little bit about how you see it as we continue to grow into women, adults.
Okay, that's an interesting question. I believe it's a complex question, but I'm going to do my best to answer it. So I don't necessarily believe that most little Black girls are raised to be magical. I believe that we are born magical,
Mm.
but that magic is not intentionally developed. So what that ultimately ends up looking like, for us, because we're born, because of our intersectionalities of gender and race, we have an immense number of odds stacked against us, right? Especially when it comes to business in the workplace. Least paid, when it comes to trying to establish a business, we receive the least amount of funding. And just again, our autonomy and being able to take up space. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. We just don't have that. And so our magic ultimately begins to look like existing, just being while serving, supporting others, while producing, whether it be in school or at home, adapting, and not really having a real clear space to really develop who you really are and what that means for the world. So I believe that as little girls, our magic is, again, being able to adapt, to produce, to support, to serve, to do all these things that are a part of each of our stories, and be able to be graceful, to smile, to laugh, to be beautiful. That's magical to me. And so, and I guess we can talk about this as the show goes on, but I believe as we become women, there's a very important transition that takes place. It's almost, I think somebody asked me what I consider a rite of passage. And I wouldn't necessarily call it that, but there's definitely a very important transition that takes place that marks a time where that magic really comes alive.
Mm. Tell me more about that, like that specific kind of swish.
Yes. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story, me
Perfect.
personally. I feel like for much of my childhood into adulthood, there was this struggle with belonging, not really having any clarity about who I really was. I know that there's this thing that I think you probably are familiar with, and a lot of us Black girls, we hear all the time that girls should be seen and not heard. And so what that meant for me was not being able to articulate or express my truth, not even really feeling safe to do that, or even really having the tools to do that. So imagine what that looks like once you become an adult. This manifests as people pleasing. This manifests as not having healthy boundaries. This manifests as lack of direction. And we understand that when you have goals, goals give you direction and purpose. And so if you are setting goals that are largely defined by what is acceptable to everybody around you, you're misguided from the very start. And so I believe that the transition, that important transition I told you about, for me, that came when I became a woman. I become a mother. I now the negative experiences and the relationships that I've had as a girl are beginning to manifest and project into my developing professional relationships. And so there came a time when I had to really confront my past, confront my wounds and the source of those wounds. There are some important questions that we have to be able to ask ourselves about why we are the way we are. So I'll tell you a funny story. When I was in college, this was before I became a mom, I had a really, really close friend, and we had a big falling out, as all of us do with some friend at some point in our life, right? So we had a big falling out, and she pulled the car over, and she was about to put me out. And she pulled a car over, and we're just talking. She was a really good friend. She gave me a space to express the way I feel, And so she asked me, she said, do you believe that the reason why it's so hard for you to maintain relationships with other Black women is because of your relationship with your mom? And it just kind of stopped me in my tracks. I had nothing else to say. And it really encouraged deeper exploration, one, of my relationship with my mom, but then encouraged me to just reflect on, where was this all coming from? Where is this coming from? And I remember a therapist once even saying that anger is a mask for hurt. And so, and I know I'm dishing a lot of things at you, but those are the type of questions and experiences and confrontations that are necessary for us to be able to walk boldly in our authenticity and who we are. And that's what I dub the Black woman's superpower. That transition is a very necessary component of being able to tap into that Black woman's superpower.
Wow. That's definitely profound. There's a lot of layers there for sure. And I think that we are kind of socialized to deal with other women based on how we interacted with our mom, right? That's just like our first woman
Yes.
interaction.
Yes.
So it
Right.
definitely will set the tone for how we deal with other females. So that's interesting topic you brought up. And so I think it's important for, I guess, the audience to take away, check in with that, right? If you're having conflicts or confrontations or challenges or whatnot, personal and professional, and I know there's a lot of women who say, "Oh, I can't be friends with women. Oh, women, girls, I just can't trust them. They just blah, blah, blah." And I always looked at them sideways, like, maybe it's you, girl.
Yeah.
Maybe it's you, child, because right. And if you are listening and you're one of those women, check to see what's going on with you and your mother, your aunts, your grandmothers, your sisters, right? Because that's again where it all starts, where we learn how to interact with women. So I love that you brought that up. That's a big one.
Absolutely. And I would like to even add that sometimes, we're carrying, I was reading an article, a scientific article, where they were saying that trauma is passed down in our genetics. And that was really, really profound for me. So sometimes you can be you could have had a healthy relationship with your mother, but you could be dealing with trauma that was passed down through generations. And again, talking about Black girl magic to Black woman superpower, as a little Black girl, we don't often get spaces where that's made sense of. What is this and why it looks this way, why it feels this way. So we adapt. We adapt, and what that looks like is complicated relationships, unhealthy, toxic relationships. And people oftentimes say who you're connected to defines you. But I think that's kind of a big pill to swallow, because there is a point in my life where I feel like you have less control over that, in the connections that you make based on who you are or who you think you are. So that's important to note.
Yeah, definitely. So, the podcast is centered around personal branding for women of color. And we talk a lot about showing up, right, to build your brand, showing up to build your business, showing up for yourself, being authentic. How do you feel like, Black Girl Magic translated into, what did you say? I don't want to misspeak.
Woman superpower.
Black woman superpower. How do you see that in relation to, putting yourself out there and building relationships and building, business?
I'm so
How
happy
can
that
we leverage that, or how do we tap into that? How do we recognize that we have a superpower? Like all of those things. Let me hear your thoughts.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. I believe that, again, that important transition, which I call the point of transcendence, is that point where you confront your past, you begin to ask those important questions. And for a lot of us, it just kind of happens. You just don't, you don't schedule it, or you don't plan it like, next year I'm gonna really get into the grid of. No, it just kind of happens through a twist of circumstances where we get to our point where we're just like, what is this mess that I'm living in? I'm like, I become robotic. I'm people pleasing. I'm just not, I don't feel like I'm who I'm supposed to be. I don't have a sense of purpose or direction. You're lost. And once you begin to ask those questions again about who am I, why me or why not me, you begin to uncover some really, really important truths that once you embrace them, that's really when you tap into your true, authentic self, who you really are. You have to be able to make sense of that. And so I always give my clients a few pointers for being able to reach that space if they have not, upon collaborating with me. I always encourage them to, you have to go through your healing. That's all in that point of transcendence, healing, forgiving, releasing baggage that has been weighing you down. You need to be able to give yourself what you need, because a lot of times, your needs, especially as little Black girls. Now, I'm differentiating between our basic needs, food, water, shelter, and our core needs of our true self. A safe space to be able to express the way we feel, a safe space to be able to, I let my daughter, she listens to this song about have big feelings, and have a safe space to be able to do that. So give yourself what you need. You have to prioritize yourself. And I know I've learned that you teach other people how to love you. So if you're not prioritizing yourself, if you're not loving yourself well, you're essentially teaching other people that what you do doesn't matter, because you're saying it, whatever you have going on, I'm putting that to the side for you. And so that gives them permission to also put that to the side for them, right? So you have to prioritize yourself. And then lastly, you have to be intentional about the relationships that you pursue, the opportunities that you pursue that are really, really in alignment with your values and what represents you, regardless of how that makes anybody feel. Regardless of how that makes anybody feel, that's the power of authenticity. And that's our superpower, being able to, against all of the challenges that we face as Black women, we see it all over the news all the time. Again, that's where the celebration for BGM comes from. We have all these adversities, and we still are able to transcend, to rise above and accomplish these great things. And I think an important culprit of that is embracing who you are and being able to align with opportunities and experiences that mirror that.
Yes. Ooh, you out here preaching. No, but I mean, big facts. I am a big proponent of authenticity, right?
Yes.
Because I understand when I am my most authentic self, that's where the true magic happens.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Everything else falls into place when I understand who I am, when I embrace who I am, when I honor who I am. Everything
Yes.
else is going to fall into place,
Absolutely.
because I'm not going to show up in the spaces where I'm not able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I love that message, because I feel like it's something that we do not do enough. We just
Right.
don't sit down with ourselves and say, man, who are you? What are you doing? What do you
Right.
want? What do you need?
Right.
We just kind of go through life, and to me, it's just survival mode.
Yes. Yes.
We're always on survival mode.
Yes. You hit the nail on the head. Yes. That's BGM for me, is about survival. Coming out of that place of survival and being able to be you regardless of that is so liberating. But like I said already, a lot of people don't have the tools. I didn't feel like I had the tools. Like, it was really hard for me to. So let me just say this: like, going throughout my life, I did do things that I don't necessarily believe that I got approval for. A lot of approval for. I did things that kind of went against the grain, but it wasn't because I was aligning with who I truly was. It was just resisting who I knew I wasn't. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it's important for us to give ourselves grace and to extend grace to those maybe nieces or sisters that we have that are in that space where they're just trying to figure it out, and they may be bucking up and doing all these things that you like, I know that's not you. They probably know that too, but I also know that that's not me either. So this is all a part of my journey. So I went through that for a little while, and like when I got into that season of really just trying to figure it out and really being okay, because everybody else is living their life, everybody else
Right.
is doing what they want to do, and here we are trying to survive, trying to support, trying to serve, oftentimes at the sacrifice of what we need. And so when we really get into that, and like I said, a lot of people don't have the tools. So our journeys are going to look different when we go through that important transition. But the discoveries that we achieve and the authority that we gain, again, to be able to take up space confidently and safely, that's a very empowering space to be in.
Yeah. I'm totally with you on that. There's a comment here where when we go live, sometimes we get comments, and I want to address this one today. It says Black women don't get the space to learn to navigate the world within their identities, which doesn't allow for that needed introspection.
Mm-hmm.
What would you, I have some thoughts, but what would you say in response to that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And if you agree, how do you feel like we can overcome this challenge?
I definitely agree that we don't get the space. That's what I was talking about when I said we don't have the tools. It's because we haven't haven't been afforded the space to be able to express our truths safely, right? And in order to be able to develop and articulate and strengthen who we are, our voice and our truth, we have to be able to exercise that. So when we don't, you're talking about needed introspection. What does that even look like? What does that even mean? To be able to self-reflect, to really to dive in and actually do the work. Where do we start? So I think being equipped with the tools to be able to do things like confront big feelings, being having the spaces to have healthy conflict with important female figures in our lives, like our mothers, our sisters. Having safe spaces to be able to do that is a great place to start, to be able to develop those tools that we need to navigate our identities, for sure.
Yeah. I think it's a matter of recognizing it first, right? You have to be aware that, hey, there's an issue here. I'm not able to tap
Yes.
into myself,
Yeah.
right? You got to recognize that that's a thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us are just blindly living life, not realizing like we don't know ourselves.
Right, right. Very true. Very true.
Right. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I feel like is we have to almost demand it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yes.
the comment said we don't get the space to learn to navigate the world. We won't, right? No time soon.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we will, but I don't see it happening tomorrow, right? We
Mm-hmm.
won't get the space. So we have to take the space. We have to make the space. We have to proactively create the space for us to be able to do this work, right?
That's
And
it.
I feel like at the end of the day, that takes courage.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You need it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was gonna say fear, because
Yeah.
fear was a big thing for me. Just walking in fear, it was a huge burden for me. Just not knowing what the other side of being true and being honest and being open, what that looked like, and I guess in carrying the trauma of maybe speaking your truth at one time or another as a little girl and being met with backlash or disregard or lack of validation for how you feel or what you express that you need. You get to a point where you have this learned behavior of, I just won't say anything.
Yeah.
I just won't say anything. I tolerate, I deal with, we play along to get along. We do what we got to do. We push through all these things that we hear within our community and our culture about what you said earlier. We really are just surviving. We're on autopilot, really, with it. And so, again, that's why taking up space, we say that a lot to each other, especially to us Black girls. Take up spaces. That's why that's so important, taking up space, because just like you said, that is really demanding what is rightfully ours all along. Nobody's going to give it to you, like you said, but this is my space. I have the right to do this, to express how I feel, to get what I need.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that, like you said, another part of it where you said, like, as children, we're met with, the shame or the silencing or whatever when we do show up. So we learn to not. I also believe sometimes we watch others experience those things and internalize it as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So maybe we didn't necessarily have those experiences ourselves, but there's so many of us with that story. We feel like we're going to have the same fate.
That's good.
I say that because, I coach executive women of color around showing up authentically to build their personal brand for the purpose of building a business, starting a business, or making a name for themselves, speaking on stages, whatever that may look like on the other side. And what I find is, some of them feel the need to code switch or to, minimize themselves or to
Yes,
not share that side of them or to
yes,
put
yes,
up this
yes,
barrier, this
yes,
wall, like, oh, I'm gonna be this way at work, but when
yeah.
I get home or in the car, I'm gonna, be myself. And that is exhausting,
It is. It
right?
is.
But the other part is I always ask them, where's the proof that if you were to show up authentically, something negative would happen? Has
That's
that happened? Most times it's no, never happened to me. So they didn't even try to show up fully, right? They didn't even try because it's so ingrained either
Yes.
from their own experiences or, others.
Yes.
And even in the workplace, we hear of all the stories of the Black women and the microaggressions. And of course it happens. I'm not trying to say it doesn't. I'm trying to say, have you tried it? Have you done something? Have you pushed back? Have you showed up fully? And then how did they take it? Because there are companies that do embrace us. We just gotta find who they are. If we want to be appreciated for who we are, we have to go into the spaces that will appreciate us. We're not about to change that environment. And so, me and my clients, we go through this, you know, all these scenarios. And it's like, maybe I will try to stop laughing at the dry jokes. Because,
And
right?
I mean, that's real. You're speaking truths. I've been there, done that. Minimizing myself to again play along and get along, especially in professional spaces. And I too struggled with that, being one person on the clock and one person off the clock, and not having that congruence in terms of who I was. And it is draining. It is unfulfilling. And they don't, those spaces where you're showing up as somebody other than your true authentic self, it does not get the benefit, the glory of who you truly are. You don't even get to experience that but half time, so it's a huge disservice. And I was just joking with one of my clients the other day, because she was working on a resume and she wanted to be a little bit creative with some font, a colored font. And my perspective, everybody might not agree with this, but I was just like, because she has such immense value to offer a company, right? And it was obvious to see from her resume. I believe that she would do well in an interview. And so I was like, if you get with a company, if this resume lands on somebody's desk and they don't give you the opportunity because of the color of your font for your name, is that really a space that you want to be in? They got bigger fish to fry, because if the gatekeeper to this position is more concerned about the font color than the impact that you can make on that organization, it's a whole nother thing going on there. Do you really want to be a part of that? And we can ask that question when it comes to our personal relationships, when it comes to commitments that we make. Like, why do it? Why say yes if it's going to require that you diminish who you are, or it's going to make you uncomfortable because it doesn't align with your values or what's important to you or how you feel? It seems black and white, but it's really not that easy. It can be really challenging.
Yeah. I mean, we get it, but to actually execute that
Yeah.
is it's challenging.
It
I'm
can.
definitely not wanting to downplay it. I
It
just
can.
want the awareness to be there, right? So
Mhm.
maybe whoever's listening to this could start to get their wheels turning and start
Yes.
thinking about things in a
Yes.
different light, in a new perspective. Because at
Yes.
the end of the day, we gotta be happy.
Right.
There, to me, the only purpose in life is to be happy.
Yes.
Outside of that, what are we doing?
Right. That's the
You
major
know,
question.
what are we doing? And why are
That's
we
the
doing
shit you need to take to the bank and cash right there. What you doing? I
it?
mean, for real. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Because, it's just, and then the other part of it is honestly, I think some of it is rooted in lack.
Mm.
I say that because you're at this job
Mhm.
that you feel a certain way, you if it just doesn't sit right with you and your energy and your soul, but you continue to go day after day because ain't no more jobs out here.
Doing what you got to do.
But there are ways in which you can continue to find, right? It's like almost like I'm gonna stick with this because this is it. When
Right.
it's this, it's so much bigger. There's so much more opportunities. You just got to put in a little bit of work. But you
Mhm.
are putting in work. You're putting in energy to stay at this place that's making you uncomfortable. Pick a
Yes.
struggle.
You
I would
right.
prefer to be
Fact.
uncomfortable trying to figure out a new job than to be
Fact.
uncomfortable settling in and not doing anything at this job that's I'm uncomfortable every
Fact.
day. That's
Fact.
just me.
Right.
Everybody's not the same. Everybody doesn't have the energy. People prefer to, you know what I mean? Just stay with the devil they know, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I just challenge you to just do more for yourself. Prioritize yourself a little bit more. And I think we're in a state right now where money is tight for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I totally understand. Money tight for me too. I
Right.
got family of five.
Wow.
Grocery bill ain't no joke. I
Okay, I know that.
understand. What I'm saying is dedicate some time to moving in a different direction,
You have to.
right? Don't just stay there and stay there. Stay there to pay the bills, do what you got to do, but there has to be a plan in place in the background.
I love that. I love that. And I would like to add on there that I believe that for many people, they may have the misconception that to speak your truth or to get into a space where you're being your authentic self, it has to be bold and drastic. And in some spaces or in some circumstances, it has to be boisterous or even disrespectful. I've had people that have told me in a disrespectful manner that they were just speaking their truth. And it doesn't have to be all that. Aligning with authenticity, you can do it in small, digestible pieces. But the importance is just like you just mentioned, taking the time and taking the step. We've all heard the cliche, the hardest part is just starting. So maybe you may start with this one relationship that you know is just not a reflection of who you are. It doesn't fuel where you're growing and evolving to. Maybe I'll start there. Maybe that's the end of that season for that relationship. That's a start. Maybe I will start with, my choice of music that I listen to. Or I mean, we can start small, and before you know it, these small steps will become big moves, when we add them all together. So I would definitely encourage your audience to just start aligning again, asking those important questions, healing, forgiving, and prioritizing what you need, however that may look. Start small, but commit to that. You deserve that. You deserve to commit to yourself and prioritize yourself and the world. Oh, what the world stands to gain once you really, really get in that space.
That's right. I always say if we all just showed up fully, all the Black women around the world just
Yeah.
showed up fully,
Yeah.
what would that look like?
How beautiful that would be. How amazing that would be.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. And that's why I committed to helping Black women owned businesses and their brand, because that's an important part of that. I do a little bit of work with personal branding because I feel like in order for you to execute your business most efficiently in a way that's, because I feel like your business is an extension or should be an extension of you. This is one extension of you and your greatness and who you are. And so an important part of that is just your own personal brand, knowing who that is and being able to communicate that. And those women that I've served who have, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you do hair, and you've developed this hair business, and it may not be in alignment with who you are. Maybe you're doing it because your mom did it or your grandmother did it, and this just is like a family business. This is something, but it doesn't align with what's important to you. Well, you're not going to be able to maximize this business, its profits, the connections that you're able to make. You're not going to be able to drive the vision effectively because it doesn't align with your truth and who you are and what's important to you. Because what's important to you, where your attention goes, that's where your energy goes. So I do a little bit touching on personal branding, but that's why I wanted to get into supporting Black women-owned businesses, because we do so much with so little support. And I wanted to be able to, my contribution, my impact on the world is being able to support us and really clarifying and articulating that extension of who we are, that true, authentic version of who we are in business.
I love that. Definitely. I'm feeling that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to something else you had said, where you talked about being authentic doesn't necessarily mean being disrespectful. And I think being authentic at work doesn't necessarily mean being ghetto and hood, right? That's not what that means.
Right. It's important to clarify that.
Right? Because I feel like some people think they can't be themselves because they want to be cussing and,
Right.
using a bunch of slang. They don't
Right.
understand that. Like, you can say a few words here and there, but you can't. And so, I think there's a fine line there, though, right? It's a fine line between being quote unquote professional or being able to communicate in a way where the people around you will understand, and then bringing your essence to the table.
Right.
But that's what I'm on. Bring your
Right.
essence, bring your je ne sais quoi, bring your magic.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you gotta pop off on everybody.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there because I think
Yes.
a lot of people, like you said, they'll be rude and then be like, well, that's just being real.
Or I'm just
You
being
can,
me.
you can be real, you can be you, and you can be kind.
Tactful.
You could be tactful, you can be right. You don't have to be, and that's something I had to learn, child,
Yeah.
because
Same.
I'm very, I'm pretty raw. It's hard
Same.
for me to. And so I can speak on that because I know firsthand,
Mm-hmm.
as the deliverer of the message,
Mm-hmm.
how much it can impact what they hear and how they hear it. When you just being real, you don't have to be real with, anger or aggression. That makes
And
sense.
mindfulness,
Mhm.
mindfulness, practicing mindfulness and just being aware. And I think that may just be a hyper response to tapping into that authenticity for some people. It can be so liberating that they kind of go off on the deep end with it, of speaking my truth and saying what I have to say. I haven't been able to say it, and now by any means necessary, and they feel like the ends justify the means. And I just think a little bit of mindfulness,
Yeah.
can go a long way in being able to sustain in different spaces.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you. So tell me about this book that you are working on.
Oh, so I have been working on this debut project of mine that's near and dear to my heart for some time. And it's really exploring the topics of Black girl magic and a Black woman's superpower in depth. I'm really excited about it. Again, it's not undoing the idea or the thought around BGM. It's just an alternative perspective. I definitely believe that BGM is it's a culture. We've created a culture around it, a movement around it, and I'm for that all day, every day, 365. But again, based on my own personal journey, I definitely believe that there was a specific point in time that really kind of shifted how I show up and what that meant to show up. A lot of things happened. So I talk about that in the book, but I would love for the audience to continue to follow me on LinkedIn because I'm really excited about this project. I definitely believe that it's going to be extremely insightful in terms of understanding how we show up as Black women in professional spaces and what that means for the collective. Because there's an important note to make there. Yes, it's about autonomy. It's about being. It's about who you are. But that's definitely something that's going to be empowering for the collective. So I explore what that means for us when you show up fully, like you said. So I talk about that in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with it. Because I feel like, so I'm doing something similar. I'm not writing a book. I'm putting together a white paper of sorts, and I'm doing some research alongside my sister around, the concept of code switching to be able to make it to grow, to ascend that corporate ladder. And I'm looking for the Black women who have a high level of influence in organizations and did not code switch to get there. Because we see so much literature around we have to code switch, and 57% of Black people feel like they have to code switch, and they have code switched, right? And all right, we get it. What about the flip side? Like, I believe that we can make it, and that being authentic is our secret sauce.
That's the power.
So I'm trying to find the women who have done it to put in this study. I'm gonna do a few case studies and things like that, but I want some stats around this to show we don't have to code switch. I think the key will end up being we have to find the companies that will embrace us. And what I think is a tragedy is that we want to be a part of these companies so bad, these big ones, right? The big corporate ones that really could care less about us.
Right.
We want so bad to be, the Harvard professor. We want so bad to be, head of whatever, Fortune 500, that we will do what we have to do, sacrifice whatever we need to sacrifice, right? Lose ourselves, lose our sense of self, lose our sanity just to hold the title.
That's going to be a good one. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I'm working on that on the back end.
That's good.
We have some overlap a little bit with the project we're working on. So I just wanted to throw that out there, but I love it. I love it. We gotta keep this work going.
For sure. And I just wanted to add, you made a note about code switching and doing what we have to do, but also creating conflict with other Black women, being a part of that, doing what you got to do. That's an experience that is becoming all too common. The threat, the unspoken threat that we feel is created between us. One. And then two, I'd like to say, when I talk about being able to show up fully, us creating businesses and creating companies that allow safe spaces, because I don't know if you know, but Black women business owners are the number one employer of Black people. Black women business owners are the number one employer of Black people within our community. So there's a huge opportunity there for us. And even a call to action, if you will, and being able to create those spaces where we don't have to do that. Like you said, instead of aspiring to be a part of what they got going on, creating our own spaces, because we're very much capable. And again, going back to the $1 million question you asked, what would that look like if we were all able to show up fully and freely?
Yeah. I love you brought that up, because what I have observed, is once you make it to a certain level, right? there's a perception, or it could be based on reality, that there's only room for one of us.
Mm-hmm.
They're only gonna let one of us up there just
Right.
to right. So now we're pitted against each other because we feel like it's you or me. Can't
Right.
be both.
Right.
So
Right.
that's kind of I think the environment that is created that leads us to start bumping heads when we really should be collaborating and
Right.
seeing how we can both, move up.
Take over,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Because we can. And
Yeah.
that's our time on, collaboration. We can do this together.
Absolutely. Whoa, this was so good.
We're talking to you. That was fun.
Yes,
Yeah.
awesome episode. So tell the people how they can connect with you, what you got coming up or going on, and then if you want them to, reach out or whatever that may look like.
Okay, sure, absolutely. So thank you. I see my LinkedIn information is going across the screen. I definitely would encourage you all to continue to follow me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn will be the place for me to keep you all updated with my debut project, my book, which is my priority right now. I had to make a point of pivot when it came to my business, but I am still doing the work. So if you're interested in any brand strategizing as it relates to your business, if you are a woman of color, you own a business and you want some clarity on your brand, its identity, and how your business is showing up, I'd love to speak with you and work with you. You can also connect with me on Facebook. Same name, Kiwanee Crummey on Facebook. I'd love to add you and have you a part of my community. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time and your insights and your story and you being vulnerable. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Listen, guys.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So, guys, if you like this episode and you want to support the podcast, all you got to do is subscribe to us on YouTube. You can leave a rating. We're also on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, we are there. So, in order to support and keep it going, making sure that, we're building community, please subscribe and leave a rating, leave a review, share this out with someone else, spread the word. And, that's all I'm asking. The name of the podcast is Empowered Presence. Empowered is just the authority to be able to do something, and presence is the state of fact of existing. So you already have the power to be. So
Yes.
be who you are.
Yes, love it.
All right. Until next time, happy self-marketing.
Toodaloo.